G'day guys, and welcome back to the Boundary Riders Podcast. We're up to episode 10 now, and we just completed round 8. We had a couple of big victories for Collingwood over Sydney. Melbourne just scraped home against Gold Coast, and we had Brisbane beat Carlton down in Melbourne. It was a pretty good week, but I think it was most of the favourites did go on to win. There were a couple of close games like the Melbourne one, but overall the favourites in every game basically got home, I think. What did you think of round 8?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty standard, pretty good week. Like, most people would have got most of their tips right.
Yeah, I know I got 8 out of 9. I only missed one, but Carlton game over Brisbane.
Yeah.
Did you get?
Yeah, I got them all.
You got 9.
Finally got them all. I'm one of the worst tippers, to be honest. But yeah, I did get them all right this week, so I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. So one thing that happened this week that it was yesterday. People are talking about it, and as a Swan supporter, I don't really understand why, but Buddy Franklin was getting booed pretty loudly, I guess. Pretty boisterous crowd for Collingwood. We're booing Buddy Franklin when he touched the ball throughout the game.
Yeah.
I know you didn't watch a lot of it, but I watched the whole game. He was watching the other two games because Paul were on first, and he's a Paul supporter, and the second game was... Basically, watch that one so we could get the votes for me because I didn't fucking know. I wasn't gonna.
It wasn't a good one to watch either. So we'll get to that later. But yeah.
Yeah, but basically, Buddy Franklin was getting booed, and a lot of people have came out only in the media really and have tried to make this a story when it's not. Now obviously I'm a Swan supporter. I watch him every single week. I don't know why this is a story because Buddy Franklin gets booed every single time he's at an away game.
He does, yeah.
He gets every single time. This isn't like the Horn Francis stuff because Horn Francis, I don't even know why he's getting booed, but. I mean, I get why he's getting booed, but I don't think it's really necessary. Not to say that I'm not going to sit here and condemn people who do it because whatever if you want to boo, boo, whatever. It's up to you. I don't care as long as you're just doing it for boo because I don't like you as a football player or something. Whatever. If you go out there and do it for some other reason for racism or whatever, then you're an asshole. But if you're just doing it because you're a football fan at the footy and just get a bit carried away at the time, I don't give a crap. It's on you. If you're a footballer and you can't handle that, I'm sorry, but don't play AFL because there's going to be 40, 30, 50,000 people every
don't
week.
play professional sport, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you're not going to be able to take a couple of negative feedback. But anyway, Buddy Franklin was booed. I don't think it's much of a story because he gets booed every single week. I think it's just amplified this week because... Not to anything bad against Collingwood or protecting Collingwood supporters, but there were 70,000 people at the ground.
Yeah, you're going to hear it.
It was like the 4th highest home away crowd in Sydney Swans history.
Yeah. They
said throughout the commentary on the weekend. So, of course, if there's a majority opposition crowd, there's 70,000 people there, people are going to boo Buddy Franklin. It happened, we were at a Port Swans game last year, and all the Port supporters were booing him. Now, last year there wasn't... there was 30,000 people in the crowd.
Yeah.
So
did you hear anything about it?
No, you won't hear anything about it. There's 70,000 people in the crowd, and suddenly there's a story. It's not a story. I'm telling you right now. But Buddy Franklin getting booed was not that big a deal, and I'm not. And they shouldn't try to be every single time a player gets booed every single week. They shouldn't be trying to get this out of the game. Booing.
Yeah.
Booing is part of sport. People are going to boo. People are going to cheer. What's the next thing to go if booing goes? What, cheering? Too loudly? Whistling? Is that going to... it's just ridiculous. Overall, Buddy Franklin, I'm sure it didn't affect him that much. Like I said, I'm sure he's dealt with it a lot of his career.
Yeah.
Because, funnily enough, the people who are the better players in the AFL get booed. That's who it is. I remember, I think Gary Ablett at stages got booed when he was at the goal... Or he was back at Geelong. I remember he got booed for it. And Paddy Dangerfield got booed when he went to Geelong, and he's been booed a lot of his career as well. There's a lot of players that just get booed.
And there's different reasons to why people get booed. There's just so many different reasons. You got Tom Scully who left the
Demons.
The Demons for money. He got booed for
He got booed by a lot of people, not just Melbourne supporters.
Exactly.
People just sometimes... I think an Australian thing is just to... I don't know, just... let rip at the football or whatever and just... have a little bit of fun almost. And I'm not saying that it has to be fun to boo, but, when I'm at the footy, I get carried away. So, I think it's just trying to make a storm in a fucking cup, whatever I don't know what the saying is. I'm a bit of a moron, but I don't think... There's no story here. There's nothing to say. I think they're fucking ridiculous. I don't think that the AFL top media need to try and act like the teachers or the principal and tell everyone, it's not allowed to boo. You shouldn't be booing at someone. It's get over yourself. We're supporters. We're just watching the game. who gives a fuck if we're booing?
Most
Most of the time. I mean, yes, 70,000 people. I'm sure Buddy would have heard 50,000 people booing at him. But every single week, I'm sure there's thousands of people who will boo when he touches the football, and he wouldn't even know about it. So it's just ridiculous. But nonetheless, that was just one of the big stories that came out throughout the weekend. But because we just finished round 8, I thought it'd be a good idea because we're a third way through the season. I don't think the final 8 or by any means is set yet, but a lot of the time throughout earlier in the season, you can kind of get a good indicator about what the final 8 is going to look like from this stage of the season. So I thought we'd go from the ladder positions right now, go from bottom to top, and just give it pass or fail marks so far this season. Obviously, there may be some out. I think you can say middle of the range if you think that they're like in the spot that they should be. But so basically, fail is they've done terribly this season, way under what they should be doing. Middle of the range, you think that's where they're about right, and then obviously if pass, you think they've definitely done. They're achieving well so far. Pretty simple. I don't think that's very difficult to think about. Nonetheless, first of all, Wooden Spoon is at the moment, just by a little bit of percentage, is Hawthorn. I think I'd give him a fail, but I wasn't really expecting much more than Hawthorn were going to do this year.
Yeah, I think it's a fail, definitely. I think it's a definite fail for them. Like, you got...
I don't think it's the players' fault though. It's the way they've managed the team.
It's more the behind the scenes staff members that it's the fault at the moment.
They won one game against North Melbourne when North Melbourne were missing their two best midfielders. Newcomb, Davies Uniacke and Simpkin. Yeah. So I think that they're a fail, but let's be honest, we really expected them to finish much higher than bottom. I don't think so. So. Next, we get up to West Coast. This is a definite fail. They've failed by leaps and bounds this season. They said they're going to change their game plan, and to an extent, I think they have, but it's not working for them.
And a lot of their players are underperforming. Besides Oscar Allen and probably Tim Kelly, everyone else is a fail.
Yeah, both of them. Oscar Allen's definitely if he was in a better team right now, I think he'd be leading the Coleman.
Yeah, I think he'd be all Australian talked about more, but because he's playing West Coast, he's just not talking about it. And he's the only one besides Jeremy Cameron to kick multiple goals in every game. So
I think it was last week we were talking about what players for West Coast need to go and what need to stay, and I think they don't need to go cut all the way as deep as Hawthorn did, obviously, but I think they need to start cutting some players. Either send them out, try and get some draft picks back, and then just try and do something to move up this ladder. They need a rebuild. I think they're still in denial on that rebuild.
They're still.
I don't know why they're not considering we have to rebuild this team, because at the moment their only real A grader now is probably I couldn't even name an A grader. I mean, Tim Kelly and Oscar Allen probably been their best this season, but are they A graders? I mean, Oscar Allen's probably been the only top. He'd be top grade at the club, but I don't think he's A grade yet.
No,
as a tall forward. So I think that they have to worry. I think they've got some serious troubles, West Coast, and honestly, I think they finish 17th. I don't think they jump higher. They don't win many more games this season. I think they will have Hawthorn later on, so that will probably decide who finishes in the Wooden Spoon, actually, because I don't see either of them winning any more games. After that, we get to North Melbourne. I think it's about par for the course. I think I'm just going to go with the even, because I wasn't expecting them to finish much higher. I think they are playing a little bit better. Yes, they obviously got flogged by Melbourne in the week before that. I can't remember who it was. Brisbane down at the gap. Oh, they got flogged by Brisbane as well. So I'm going to say that North Melbourne are pretty par for the course. There's a young squad. There's going to be times when they're just going to get killed. But there have been a lot of performances as well where they've stuck with teams. And obviously they did win their first 2 games of the season. So for me, I'm going to say about par for the course.
Yeah, I'd say par. They've been in games when they probably really shouldn't be. Against some quality teams like St Kilda on the weekend. They were in that game for most of the...
For 3.5 quarters.
Yeah. If they kick straight early, which we'll talk about later, they could have stunned the Saints. But, it's just the inexperienced side that... Yeah.
Just couldn't capitalise in the moments.
And a few, Dave Uniacke's missed 2 games, being laid outs, which didn't help probably with their structure.
Yeah, and he's arguably one of the better midfielders one of the best young midfielders in the game coming up now. So He's definitely developed, and they're definitely building a sort of team. I think they need a second forward and probably a better defence, but other than that, I think they are building. So I'll probably, like you, I'm pretty par for the course with them. Up next, we get to Richmond, and I think this is again I think this is just a straight fail.
Yeah,
this is poor from Richmond. They refuse to believe that they need to rebuild.
Especially the Victorian media, like they keep bagging on they can still make it there.
Yeah, they've won 2 games
back
this
to their
season.
best form. No, they can't.
No, they're not playing good football. They're playing terrible football, and they've had a shot. They had a win against Adelaide in round 2, and they beat West Coast, which is a waffle team.
Yeah.
So they've beaten one team this season that's AFL standard. So they've had 1 win this season, Richmond. They got a draw against Carlton, and honestly, I don't think we'll talk about Carlton in a minute. But yeah, Carlton obviously been not that good in my opinion this season either. So I think it's 100% a foul from Richmond, and I think they'll probably win a couple of games later in the season. So they'll probably finish around that 12-10 mark in my opinion. But for now, they're a straight fail for me.
Yeah, they're a fail. They have individuals. They're not playing as a team.
Yeah. And to be honest, against West Coast on the weekend for 3 quarters, West Coast were with them.
They got a scare against West Coast, and if they played any other team, Richmond, I think even if they played North Melbourne, they would have lost that Richmond.
Yeah, so I think they're 100% a fail.
Yeah.
After that, we get to the Gold Coast. I think this is a bit of a tough one, but overall, I'm going to go with a fail. I think it's about time the Gold Coast make finals. They're not even, and at the moment, they're a game and a half out of the finals race. They have looked good the past few weeks. They almost beat Melbourne, and I think if maybe your child gets that free kick inside 50, I think he's a better kick at goal than Darcy McPherson. So I think they could have won that game, but they've only won 3 this season, and they should be challenging for the 8, not sitting almost in the bottom 4. So I think it's a foul for the Gold Coast.
Yeah, I'm going to be a bit more brutal. Yes, it was. Yes, like you said, it was a fail, but it's 100% a fail. They were saying pre-season they're making finals. We're bound for finals, and you haven't really seen it. You've seen glimpses, like we've been saying for the last 5-6 years. They've had glimpses. They've had those occasional games that they're like, oh well, this is the game that we're going to power to the finals, and it just hasn't happened, and it's sad that it doesn't look like it's going to happen again.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. After that, we get to GWS. I'm going to say par for the course. The Giants are definitely not. They're almost at a rebuild stage. They're starting to pick up some draft picks. They picked up Cadman. He's been a bit in and out of the team, but I think he'll definitely build into a good player. The Giants midfield, I think if they stay together and they start... I think Tom Green is a huge addition to their midfield. I know he's obviously been there for a few years, but this year he's been their bull. And I think they've always needed a bull midfielder. I know they've had Callan Ward, but I feel that just is a little bit more polished with Tom Green, and he kicked 3 goals on the weekend. They've never... Callan Ward was never really a goal-kicking midfielder, so I think he's definitely a piece of the puzzle that if he stays at GWS over the next couple of years, I definitely think he can build into pushing finals for Giants. But honestly, I didn't expect much more than what they've done so far this season, so I'm probably saying par for the course.
Yeah, I'd say par. Like the injuries that they've sustained throughout the season's not really helped them. They lost Toby Green before the game this weekend. They lost Sam Taylor last week. Yeah, so they're probably about where everyone expected them to be. And Adam Kingsley's putting in this new game style, which is slowly getting movement into their game.
Yeah, so I think that like we said, they're pretty par for the course. After that, we get to Fremantle, and they're a straight fail as well. They're down there with Richmond as probably the worst performing team of the season, in my opinion. Yes, they got a win this week against Hawthorn, but like Richmond beating West Coast, it doesn't mean much. Fremantle were always going to win that game in Perth. They don't have a plan going forward. They keep on getting injuries forward as well, but I don't think that injuries are always going to happen. And the fact that Fremantle, since Matthew Pavlich, have not recruited a forward to replace him. I know Matt Tabner, they keep on believing is going to be the one, and last year he was very good, but I don't think he's consistent enough to hold that forward line together, and I don't know why Fremantle... I know Luke Jackson had his best game for Fremantle on the weekend, and he played very well, but I don't think that's going to make it... I think that was a poor recruiting decision. They had to they threw all that money at Jackson. They couldn't have thrown that at someone like half of that going to Sam Wiedemann. He gets to the club.
Yeah.
You throw that at basically any tall forward that's, you know, struggling to make that team. They're moving to Perth and they're playing for Fremantle. So I think it was poor, and I think they've been very poor this season. Bar probably most of their defence and Caleb Sarong. I think they've been very poor.
Yeah, it's a fail, 100% a fail. They've beaten North Melbourne, they beat West Coast, and who's the other?
In North.
No, did they play Hawthorn already?
Last week.
Sorry, they beat Hawthorn, West Coast, and Gold Coast.
Yeah, they lost to North Melbourne.
Sorry, and they lost to North Melbourne, so it's completely not a fail. They've beaten
teams that they
beaten in the bottom
be.
5. It's pretty embarrassing as a team that
made finals. They won a final
last season. It's a fail.
Yeah. After that, we get to Sydney, and as a Sydney fan, it's been 100% a fail so far. Yes, Sydney have had a lot of injuries, but I think their list management of Buddy Franklin was poor. They should have let him retire or move on. They shouldn't have thrown any sort of... I mean, unless he was going to stay there as a rookie, there's no... And even then, I don't think he should have stayed. Sydney, yes, they've had an injury to Joel Amati, but Logan McDonald's definitely ready to take that next step, and they didn't want to give it... And they seemed like they weren't ready for it. Buddy Franklin's been poor this season, and I think that it's time for him to go. I don't think they're going to chuck him back to the VFL, but I almost would say if Sydney continue to lose more games and miss the finals, I would almost say at the end of the year, buddy, you're going to the VFL, and unless we get an injury, you're staying there. So I know that's a big call, but Sydney have failed this year. Even in games, though, it hasn't just been Buddy Franklin, though. Our midfielders played poor at times as well. And, yeah, I think that John Longmire as well has made some poor decisions in the past this year a couple of times, but I mean obviously the grand final as well. I think he needs to. I think that John Longmire is still a good coach, and I think he should stay at Sydney. I'm not saying by any means should he be sacked, but he's got to pick up his game, and I think that Sydney, but maybe Tom Papley, Chad Warner, even at times he's been poor, but Robbie Fox and Tom McCartan, I think that Sydney have been very poor this season, so I think it's 100% a fail.
Yeah, I'd say the same. Like you said, injuries. It's very hard to say, like, because Papley didn't do much pre-season, did he?
No, and he came back and he's played
and
he's
done pretty well. He's gone through the midfield. You've had Errol Gordon go through the midfield. You've had different players, but the structure up forward doesn't seem to be working, and the amount of injuries you've had in the back line just haven't helped the Swans. And if you brought up last week, if they win those other two games against the Giants and Port Adelaide, we'd be probably saying it's pass. But in those games that they've lost, they were in winning positions, and those finals teams win those.
Yeah,
and they just haven't.
Yeah, so I think that's fair enough. After that, we get to the Crows, and despite them being 10th, I would say it's a pass. I think the Crows, they should have beaten Collingwood, so they should be at least 6th right now. But overall, I think it's a pass. I think that they can make finals. I don't know if they will, but I'll say they can. I think they're probably above what I was believing they were going to do this season. And as long as they can get I think that they have to decide if Thilthorpe's going to be he's going to be a ruckman or a forward, because they keep on playing him forward, but he does nothing up there. So if he can't score, they have to play him as a ruckman, and that means they have to do something with Riley O'Brien. So I think Thilthorpe is a huge burden on the Crows forward line, because he's done nothing. He did one good game in the showdown where he played brilliantly, but other than that, he has done very poor. But in saying that, the Crows have been very good this season, and I think have beaten a lot of people's expectations. So I'm going to give them a pass.
I think it's par. I don't think it's a pass. I think that they've been rebuilding and all that kind of stuff, but the last couple of weeks, like Sloane has gone back into the midfield. Laird has been pretty much shouldering the workload. Yes, you got the skipper in Dawson going in the midfield. Maybe that's a bit different, but you're still relying heavily on Walker up forward. They've had a few injuries against the Cats to their defenders. So how bad are those going to be? I think that they haven't really recruited well in the back line, they've relied too much on Walker still. Yeah, and Walker seems to... you get glimpses of Fogarty. You brought up Phil Thorpe. I think Rankin, yes, he started on House on Fire, but he has done nothing in the last 2 weeks. So I think they're par. They need to get back to what they did early in the season, and earlier, about a month ago, and I think it's only a par.
Okay.
Might be harsh. Maybe it's because I'm a Port supporter, but it has.
No, I agree with all of what you said.
It has nothing to do with that.
And Darcy Fogarty was the last 2 weeks has been non-existent either, so I get that.
Yeah.
I just think that they've played well at times, and I think that I thought they were going to finish a lot lower. I think you probably had them at around this position.
I had them about this position.
Yeah, so maybe that's probably fair enough. After that, we get to Essendon, and I think they're 100% a pass. No one expected them to do anything this season, especially when they're in the eve of the season, Peter Wright went out. I didn't expect them to do much. But they've got 4 wins this season, and they've got 2 very close losses against Collingwood and Port Adelaide, both who are fighting for final spots. I think Essendon have done brilliantly. However, I think that they're going to struggle if one injury comes to their defence, because we've seen the past 2 weeks against Port Adelaide and Geelong, especially Geelong, but against Port Adelaide, that when a big, bustling, tall forward is playing, that they struggle. So I think it's 100% a pass for me, but they have to be careful, because if one of them we saw Ridley get injured and get concussed in the Port game, and they looked at C for a lot of that game.
Yeah.
So, and if Port kick straight, Port win that game pretty well. But you got to give credit for Essendon to staying in that fight and keep on going. But for me, I think it's a pass.
Yeah, I think it's a pass. They look like they're hungry for the football, and you haven't seen that in 20 years. In the last 20 years since Kevin Sheedy Sheedy left, which is great for the fans, and you can see them really invested in this club this season.
Yeah, we saw them in Gather Round against Melbourne, and they were brilliant.
They were a different side to what you've seen the last, at least 5-6 years. So they're a pass. They're competitive in most games now, and I don't
know if they'll make finals.
Yeah, that's
if they don't, I don't
think it's a bad thing that if they miss finals.
Yeah, because we saw in 2021 when they just made finals, and they were they got beaten, and then they went right down because they had to play that extra game and whatever. I don't know. I just think that if Essendon don't make finals, it's not the end of the world. I still think if they can finish in the 9 to 12 mark, I think it's a pass this season.
Yeah.
After that, we get to Carlton, and I don't know if I'm going to be as harsh as you, but Carlton, I think, is a fail.
Yeah,
I
think they're a fail.
Carlton are 100% a fail, in my opinion. They've got the 2 best forwards in the comp, in my opinion. The 2 best combo in the comp. And I know people may say Geelong, Tom Hawkins, and Jeremy Cameron, but I think that these 2 are the best on potential, and I think that the midfield of Carlton is sitting there too busy handballing it to each other, and their defence is playing poorly. That I think that they can't get Adam Sard with the football, and he's the only good user on their team. So teams have found out if you shut down Adam Sard, you're basically shutting down Carlton from rebounding at all.
Yeah.
And their option going forward is bomb it on top of Curnow and Mackay's head, and really give their small forwards no chance because they don't do anything.
Yeah.
Motlop is I think he's overrated. Motlop, I think, and that's saying something because I don't think he's rated by many. Durden, I think, is pretty useless, and I know you're going to be saying harsh, but I don't think they're doing much. And Silvani, I think, is going okay, but
they don't have a position for him.
Yeah, they don't have a position for him. They're just chucking him in forward to. I think that he's a half back. I think they should be trying him in half back. That's just me, but I think that they're playing him in just no man's land. So I think that's just not his position. And I mean, who's the other one? Zach Fisher. I think he's
dropped a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't think he's definitely hasn't came on as much as Carlton definitely would have wanted him to. And the other, to Koning, I think he's leaving. I think he's definitely.
I think that's one of their biggest problems is they don't know what to do with De Koning. And it's a burden. In the last couple of weeks, it's a burden that they don't know what they want to do with him. And I think now he's gone.
Yeah,
you chucked him in the VFL and then he gets suspended.
Concussion.
Concussion. Yeah, sorry, it was concussion. Yeah, it was concussion. Yeah, and so he missed another week off footy. So it's a fail. Like you said.
This team should be fighting for top 4, and they're struggling to win, and they're just seeking the 8.
And they're some high performance manager or CEO or something like that came out in this week, and he sugarcoated it. He was a politician in most ways. He's like, it's not the end of the world for if we don't make finals and all that. Yes, he probably didn't believe that, but he had to put out something to make the...
That is 100% their pass. Their pass, I think, for me, I said this year that they were going to finish top 4.
Yeah, I think that's still...
That's their pass mark. If they don't... Well, they have to win a final, at least, for a pass. And they're struggling to sit in the 8. And I think the Crows, the Bombers, and Sydney to an extent, because I think Sydney will come good. Yeah. I don't know if they'll make finals, but I think they'll come good at some stage. But nonetheless, I think Carlton, if they don't make finals this year, I know Michael Voss has only been there a year and a bit, but I feel like if he doesn't start fixing up their game and they don't start doing some actual good recruiting, stop recruiting midfielders and start recruiting start recruiting players who are going to play your role.
Yeah.
Like, look for a small forward. You need a small forward. I mean, I know they brought back Eddie Betts, but I don't think that was the option for them.
I don't think it was.
They went for Tom Papley. He didn't want to... Well, he didn't eventually go. He didn't go. He was going to go, but he didn't.
They tried... who was the other one that was... Tip and Woody? No, it wasn't. There was one other small forward they tried. I can't remember what his name was, but yeah.
Even like Jack Martin as a recruit, he's done nothing.
Yeah, he's not even...
The Gold Coast would be sitting there laughing. They'd be like, we lost him.
But you look at their next month, their next 5 matches. You got the Bulldogs, Collingwood, Swans away, Melbourne, and Essendon.
There's no guarantee.
They can't... the way they're playing, they don't win any of them. They may beat Essendon. That's the only one I'll give them consideration for.
If Sydney don't get their defenders back, I think they beat Sydney. But again, and even that, I don't even think they beat Essendon, to be honest, because I feel like their defence is still okay against those two. I don't think... I mean, we did see Charlie Curto dominate against... he had to play against Rotham against West Coast. But I think that Essendon have a better defence than West Coast.
Yeah.
Shocker. But yeah, I think Carlton 100% a fail.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%, yeah.
After that, we get to the Western Bulldogs, and this may annoy some people, but I think they've failed as well. I think that this team has recruited and have promised so much for so many years since the grand final, really, when they won in 2016, and they still can't take the top 4. They've won 5 games this season. They're a game and percentage out of the 8. Yes, they've beaten... Who have they beaten? Fremantle, Hawthorn, Richmond...
they beat Carlton.
They beat Carlton. No, they play Carlton this week.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's just say them 3. Oh, the Giants. They beat the Giants, and they've beaten one more team. Who was it? Brisbane. They beat Brisbane. So Brisbane's their only good win so far. Other 4 teams they've beaten, they should be beating. Yeah. They should be beating Hawthorn. They should be beating the GWS. They should be beating Fremantle. From how Fremantle have been going this year. So I think they've been very poor, and I picked them for the top... Maybe it was them I picked for the top 4 and Carlton just to make the 8. Yeah, actually, no, that's what it was. I picked Bulldogs to make the top 4 because they're recruiting, they keep on promising, and they keep on not delivering.
Yeah.
I think that still, even though they lost Dunkley, which I think was their best defensive midfielder, these guys just want to get possessions and they don't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
I think Tim English is one of their standouts. He's played brilliantly. But the rest of them, I think that are just playing the same old game. And I think they'll make the 8 again because I think they'll have a good enough run. And I don't think there's many teams other than the Crows, Sydney and Essendon who can push them for the top 8 now.
Yeah.
Possibly the Gold Coast, but they're going to have to start winning some games and because their percentage is deplorable. But other than them 3 teams in particular, I think the Bulldogs have failed.
Yeah, I think it's a fail. I still don't believe they know their forward line. I don't think they do. Norton is the only one that can do it consistently. Lobb, I don't even know what he's...
I don't even know
he went there for the money. There was no reason to recruit him. They had Sam Darcy. They have...
If they wanted to play a third.
Yeah, if they want to play a third. And they want to play him back or forward. They don't know where Sam Darcy's going to play. Josh Bruce is the worst defender. I don't know why they want to play him there. I don't know why they want to try and try.
I think they just wanted to play him in the team, but he's not playing well. I mean, if it wasn't for Liam Jones, who by the way, missed a year of footy.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's playing very well, but the rest of them...
Their recruiting is one of the weirdest phenomenons. That's not the word. Shut up.
I know the worst.
Yeah, but it's one of the worst things they've done. Like, they've recruited for a squad of 30 on the field.
Yeah.
When they don't need 30, they need 18 on the field.
Yeah. They're picking too many tools, I believe, and I think they're not picking enough midfielders who will play defensively as well. Like, they're not picking and And I know there's like the best ones, but I think they should have been letting go of a McRae or a Liberatore. I mean, not so much Liberatore, but I think if they had to choose between one of them going, because I know they didn't have a choice. I know Josh Dunkley wanted to leave, but if they said we'll offer you more money and we'll get rid of Jackson McRae, I think that would have been a better option. And I feel like that the Bulldogs are sitting higher than what they have been playing this season. I think it's like Carlton. I think that Carlton, when they had their easy wins at the start of the season, we were thinking that they were very good. Yeah, but they were just beating easy beats, really.
Well,
I mean, look, they beat
Brisbane. They beat Brisbane.
No, they didn't. They lost to Brisbane last week.
Oh, what's the team? I had it right here.
They've lost to Brisbane, St Kilda. Oh, they beat Geelong. They beat Geelong earlier in the year.
Yeah.
So,
Did they?
Yeah, they beat them in round 2. So they have beaten a good team, but let's be honest, Geelong started off terribly, so I'm not going to give them much. Carlton, so I think that them and the Bulldogs are a lot higher than what they should be right now. So that's why I'm going to give the Bulldogs a fail, and I think that I think they have to win a final.
They did beat Brisbane. They did beat Brisbane.
You didn't say Brisbane. You said Carlton.
Ah.
But yes, they did beat Brisbane. The Bulldogs. We were talking about Carlton, by the way, as well. Carlton beat. Anyway, yeah. So fail for the Bulldogs.
Fail.
Next we get to Geelong, and I'm going to say fail, but I think they're going to come good.
Yeah, I think it's pass. Like, you got to think that...
I mean, where they are now, you think that's a pass?
Oh,
that's what I'm saying.
I think it's par. Alright, I'll go par. Like, yeah, they lost the games early, but...
They won their last 5.
Yeah, they've won their last 5. It's a par, I think. Like, you got to think other teams around them, like, the teams that are in the top 4 and 5 have... probably surpassed most expectations than what they probably should have been.
Yeah.
In ways.
Yeah, I guess.
But, because you're going to also think that Geelong obviously played 4 or 5 weeks more than 3 other teams up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because Melbourne went out straight sets. Port Adelaide didn't make it and St Kilda didn't make it. So they did more than 3.
Less pre-season.
Yeah, they did less of pre-season.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to say a fail just because they're sitting 6th right now when I think that if they should have beaten the Gold Coast in round 3. If they beat the Gold Coast in round 3, they're sitting 4th. I think that'd be a pass for them. So right now, I think
they're probably sitting... they're probably sitting 2nd with the percentage they probably should have got from that game. They should be sitting 2nd.
Yeah, well, you're probably right. But yeah, that's just... For now, I'm going to say a foul for Geelong. But look, I think... How they're playing right now, they'll come good. They'll make top 4, and everyone will forget about the first 3 weeks.
Everyone will be like, oh, it's a fairy tale finish. They probably win 17 in a row, and then
people are like, oh, well, what happened in the first 3 weeks? Who cares?
Happened in the first 3 weeks? No one gives a shit.
After that, we get to Port Adelaide, and well, I think they're the surprise. I mean, look. They're probably... I don't actually know. They're not the biggest. They're second biggest surprise packet of the year.
Yeah.
They're playing very good footy at the moment, and their last quarters, I don't think... They're up there with Collingwood, and I know people aren't talking about that, but their last quarter's been brilliant. They came back against St Kilda and won that game. They came back against Sydney and won that game. And if they didn't lose that game...
Last week as well, though. Against Essendon.
Yeah, against Essendon. They came back. So, I'm giving Port a pass mark, 100%. I don't trust... The thing is, though, I don't trust them just yet to make the 8. I still think they're a little bit tentative because their percentage is only 103, so they've only just been winning a lot of these games. So, if they get tight, maybe they'll win those games, but I don't think they can do what Collingwood did last year and just win those games and make finals. I think Port just have to continue to win, but they have to start winning some games pretty well.
I think it's par. I don't think it's a pass. Because the fact is that Port Adelaide still have the same 2 big problems. They don't have a big bustling defender. So against the teams like Brisbane, Brisbane won. Port Adelaide won first round against Brisbane, but I think it was a bit different. And like Geelong, they've always struggled against the 2 big bustling forwards. And the other big problem that Port Adelaide have was shown massively in the last 2 matches in the first quarter. The clearance game's not the best from Port Adelaide at the moment, especially in centre. Like, quarter time, it was 8-1 Essendon. Yeah. It's still a big problem for Port Adelaide to do it, and you just can't trust it. And that's the thing. You got to come up against the bigger midfielders like Melbourne's, even St Kilda's. Yes, we struggled early in that game. Collingwood, we got smashed in. Port Adelaide, like...
Geelong as well. They've got a very big midfield.
Geelong.
I think the Porter definitely, and they have said this the past few years, they definitely needed to recruit a big midfielder. They tried to pick up Jack Graham last year, and he decided to stay. So I still think they're one big midfielder down.
They're one midfielder. They're one big defender, and I think that it's a small forward. I think as well.
I think Rioli hasn't came on as much as he needs to.
Yeah, like he did. He's had glimpses, but he's been doing that since his career started. Really, it's glimpses. It's not
other than those last 6 or 7 weeks in the
Fantasia's just can't get on the field.
Yeah.
So I think it's par. And it would be interesting how Port Adelaide do by the bye if they're still in the top. I think in the top 8. If they're in the top 8 by the bye, it's pass. Right. I just want to see how they go for the rest until the bye.
After that, we get to Brisbane. I'm gonna say a pass but I still think that they're playing the same old way they have the last 4 or 5 years. That they're very attacking, but I don't know if it stands up against the best teams in finals footy.
I think it's a fail. I know it might be brutal on Brisbane, but they should be on top. They should be on top. That with all their forwards, all their midfielders, they should be on top of the ladder at the moment. And it might be one of the real harsh on them, but they've been teasing us for the last 4 years. 4 years, 3 years, maybe 3 years. Yeah. But they can put it on the scoreboard. We've seen that last against North Melbourne.
Different.
Yeah, it's the same old from them. Like that final series when Barry went to the Clayton Oliver. You should see the hardness of them, and you thought, all right, this is going to be the year. This is when they're going to turn it around at the start of the season. Maybe that was just a year too early, and you're just not seeing that same brutal game that they were showing.
And I think that they have to start winning at the MCG as well. We already saw them this year. They beat Melbourne, but that was in
the Gabba.
That was at the Gabba. So they need to start winning games in Victoria. Yeah, yes, they've been winning them at Marvel, but they need to start winning, especially against Carlton. I mean, they did lose to
the Bulldogs.
They did lose to the Bulldogs at Marvel. So I still think they need to start winning to win games in Victoria as well. Yeah. I know they have a pretty good record at Marvel, but they are beating teams at Marvel that are not finals bound.
Yeah, they play all the 90% of they play the bottom teams at Marvel.
Yeah.
You don't want to play the big teams like Collingwood and Melbourne there.
Yeah.
You're going to play them in the MCG, and you're not going to. I think they do play both of them again. It might only be Melbourne, but they do play. I know they do play Melbourne again.
Yeah.
So and that'll be at the MCG. Obviously.
So I mean, they have to start winning those games. So
I'm not convinced of their ladder position because obviously they smashed the North Melbournes. So. North Melbourne, West Coast, and Hawthorn. That's just on the.
You should be marking that down.
That's a percentage boost. That's all that those games are. Yeah, percentage boosters.
After that, we get to St Kilda. They are a pass. They're doing very well at the moment. And when we saw them in Adelaide, I thought this is the same old St Kilda. But I've seen glimpses of other stuff that they've been doing in the last few weeks as well, even against North Melbourne to an extent. They're playing very well defensively. They're locking teams away and they're not letting them score.
Yeah.
And I think that's, in this day and age, I think it's quite underrated.
Yeah.
I think that we've seen teams like Brisbane, for example, who can score, but they can't defend. And I think St Kilda, I don't know if they'll make finals. I'm not trusting them just yet. But at this stage, I think they've done all they could to give a pass mark. So I'm giving them a pass.
It has to be a pass. They're the top 4. No one even would have called that in 8 weeks into the season.
Yeah.
They're averaging 8 goals against. Like no. That's the Ross line of old.
That's the Ross line playbook.
Yeah, that's the playbook, and we have seen it the last couple of weeks. Like Ken Inkley came out after the game when they won, and they said we only need 12 goals to win. And they got 12 goals and they won. So you're not going to need like Brisbane kicking 20 goals a game against St Kilda. You're going to need their 10 pluses to beat St Kilda, maybe to beat St Kilda.
Yeah, the problem is it's very hard to do that.
It's a grueling. You have to play 120 minutes to beat them.
I think one big thing that I thought when St Kilda asked Ross Lyon to come down, I didn't think in this day and age of football that you could keep a team down very low scoring because the game is a lot more free-flowing, I believe, now, because also the 6-6-6 rule, but St Kilda has somehow Ross Lyon's been able to find a way to bring that back. I still think St Kilda need to get back Max King and see how he goes in the structure.
You don't know how
he goes.
Different, how it's going to change up the system.
Yeah. I think it'll be very interesting how that goes, but it's 100% a pass. They've beaten everyone's expectations. After that, we get to Melbourne, and I'm going to give them a pass because I think that I actually could have seen the Demons falling off this year because they don't have that big forward that they can control. But I think that Van Rooyen, even though he hasn't lit it on fire, I think he gives them something more than Ben Brown does, and he gives them a contest up forward. And I think because Melbourne have some very dangerous small forwards, we've seen Cade Chandler come on really well. Pickett's obviously been very good up there. And Bailey Fritsch, I think, is one of the best forwards in the game. I think that he gives them something, and I'm going to give him a pass because I could have seen the Melbourne Demons fall off this year, and we saw in the finals how poor they were last year and how they finished the end of last season. So I think that, considering they are up there with premiership favourites, I think they're equal premiership favourites with Collingwood. I'm going to give them a pass.
Yeah, I think you have to give them a pass. They're playing too good at the moment. They just the glimpses of the bad games.
Yeah.
It happened early in the season. They seem to be on a roll at the moment, and they can.
It's going to be harder to see anyone beating them. To be honest.
At the moment they look premiership. They're grand finalists at the moment.
Yeah. And finally, we get to Collingwood. I'm going to give them a pass because I saw them falling off this year.
I saw them falling off a cliff.
Yeah, I thought that was what's going to happen, but they've seemed to find a new lease on life, and Craig McRae, I think he's a very good coach. I think that he gives them something different than what a lot of other coaches give them. I think he almost seems like I don't want to say like a friend, but I feel like that he lives every moment with the team.
Yeah. You
see it on the ground, really, how much he lives with every single moment. We saw last week against the Crows how that last moment he was all over the players and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you don't normally see that sort of stuff with the coach and
players. You see the coaches usually trying to, get everything done, trying to, look for system. And I think that's a good thing, but, I mean, I think that he trusts his players to do it on the field. So, he lives every moment through the players. So, I think that he's a very underrated coach. Well, not underrated, but I think that he's a very good coach. And I believe that Collingwood are the premiership favourites. I know you believe Melbourne.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that they're a pass.
Yeah, you have to give them a pass. Like, with the amount of injuries they've had to the tools this season.
I mean, they don't even play a ruckman at the moment.
They haven't played I still don't believe they are playing a ruckman. I will get back to that later when we go to the review. But, the recruiting has also been interesting for them. They've got Markov. They brought in Tom Mitchell. They brought in, who's the other one?
Billy Frampton, I think.
Frampton, that's it. Yeah, Frampton. I think he's been the most. He's been the most utilised player for Collingwood this season.
I think it's a big call, but I think he's been one of the best recruits of the year too.
Yeah, I'll be saying that as well. Yeah, he's one of the big recruits that they've got, which no one would have said at the start of the season who's going to be the best recruit. But
he's been up there.
He'd be in the top 3. Yeah. I think. Yeah, top 3 in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the Crows. I think that's one thing the Crows shouldn't have done. I don't know why they wouldn't play him in the back half because I feel like in the games that he played for the Crows. He played there, I think, throughout the middle of the year last year. He played in defence and he was playing pretty well. And then they just suddenly dropped him back to the Sandful.
Yeah.
And he never got another go. So,
because I think the game against the Bulldogs down in Ballarat last season when he came in and he got 28 disposals and 13 intercepts or something.
Yeah.
And
lasted a
couple
of weeks and he got kicked out.
Yeah, and he looked like he found his spot. And Collingwood were like, all right, well, if you don't want to play him, we'll play him wherever we need him.
Yeah.
And it's worked for him. And
he obviously came up as a ruckman, but he's obviously been trained as a defender in recent years, and it seems like he can do both.
Yeah.
So play him in those roles, and he'll do it for you.
Exactly.
He's a competitor, and I think that's something a lot of players have lost. I think a lot of players have lost that. I think one player that I'll mention in a second that I have bagged a lot of this year is Peter Adams in the game against the Collingwood on the weekend. He got injured early, but it didn't seem like he wanted to battle for it. It seemed like he didn't want to grind through it. He wouldn't lift up his arm. I know that he could be seriously injured, and I don't think he is. I think he won't battle. He won't fight. He won't fight.
Yeah.
And I think that's not. I mean, he'll punch someone in the face in last year against Port Adelaide, but he won't battle for himself for his team. And I think that's something else. But I think that Frampton's definitely been up there with one of the best recruits of the year. So now, sorry that went for so long, guys, but we just want to go through that. So we get to the weekly votes this week, and we start off with the Carlton-Brisbane game. Lions were very good in the Mitch Robinson Cup. I can't... sorry, we'll get to the three votes, and I'll mention this. 3 votes, Dunkley, obviously.
Had to be.
Had to be. I'm not even going to say why, but we'll get into what my complaint is in a second. Charlie Cameron, I gave the 2 votes. I think he played brilliantly up forward. And the 1 vote I gave for Jackson Payne. I think he played brilliant footy, and I think he's arguably one of the best defenders this year. I think that's one thing for Brisbane. They have found someone, but I think that Harris Andrews has dropped off the face of the earth. Yeah, he's playing very poor.
The last 2, maybe even 3 seasons, he's looked off.
Yeah. I think he may have some sort of injury or niggle, or maybe he just can't deal with the captaincy. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah. But what I want to get to is Josh Dunkley got the 3 votes in this game, 100%. Yeah. But in champion data, he didn't even make the top 200 or something.
Yeah, it was something so stupid. The championship data gave him a rating of what?
Let me have a look. It was he rated 290th best player in round 8. That's ridiculous. He was one of the best players on over the whole round. And that's not talking about AFL Fantasy points or whatever. That is just talking about game. He was very good in that game. It was the best game by far he's played for Brisbane, and arguably one of the best games he's ever played.
Yeah, well, he had 33 disposals, 11 marks, 13 tackles, and I just want to get one more thing. What was his? So 14 of those were contested. He had 6 clearances, 3 inside 50s, and it was an all-time great game.
Yeah, from him. And I don't know what the champion data read. Maybe I don't even know.
Maybe you didn't watch the first, 5 minutes of the game, first quarter maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just ridiculous for me. But he was by far the best player on the ground, and one of the best for the round. So I don't know what that was. But anyway, next up we get to Richmond versus West Coast. West Coast were in this game for 3 quarters, but eventually Richmond kicked away. 3 votes I gave to Shea Bolton. 2 votes I gave to Tim Taranto, and the 1 vote I gave to Dion Presti. He kicked 3 goals in a row in that third quarter.
He turned the game.
Yeah. We won't spend too much time on this game, to be honest, because I didn't even watch a lot of it.
Just West Coast need more forwards, targets really. Besides Oscar Allen, who's dominating.
Yeah, he kicked 4 goals and was probably West Coast best. Yeah. So I think that he played quite well in that one, but I just didn't think he could get the 3 votes. Just because, a vote, just because I feel like Richmond dominated most of that last.
The pivotal moments that you needed.
Yeah. After that, we get to Cats versus Crows. This was down in Geelong, and this game was actually I was streaming this game and I watched it all the way through, and the Crows just would not go away in this one. The Cats stayed with it. The Cats just always had that 3 to 4 goal margin throughout the whole afternoon.
Yeah.
But Geelong, they won this game and won it, I think, pretty well in the end. They just held them away. So I just think that they definitely were the better of the 2 teams. And I think it wasn't like last week the Crows, were the better team probably against Collingwood, but then just let Collingwood come back for the last 21 seconds. I think they had the lead for it in the game.
Yeah, that was it. And that was all they needed.
For the 3 votes I gave to Max Holmes, he was brilliant in this game, playing through the midfield a lot. Especially when Paddy Dangerfield went down with injury. Paddy Dangerfield would have been getting the 3 votes if he didn't get injured, honestly.
Yeah, he had 16, wasn't he? 16 disposals by half time.
Yeah, he was brilliant in the first half, but I couldn't give him any votes just because he was only in for half of the game, in my opinion. 2 votes I gave to Jordan Dawson. He's playing brilliant this year in the midfield. And the 1 vote I gave to Jeremy Cameron. He kicked quite a few goals in this game, and I think he was the most influential forward on the ground, so that's why I gave him the 1 vote. After that, we get to the Demons versus the Gold Coast. This game was an absolute thriller, and I don't think anyone saw the Gold Coast not competing, but I didn't think they were going to get this close.
Yeah.
They played some good footy, and arguably probably should have got a draw out of this one. Darcy McPherson, like I said a little bit earlier, I think maybe Chol should have got that free kick, and maybe he could have kicked it, but Darcy McPherson should have kicked it. It was pretty much in front, 40 metres out. He should be kicking that goal. He kicked it on.
But you got to think also, he played the last 12 months defence, so he might not be taking the practice that he used to when he was playing forward for the Gold Coast. So maybe criticism for him, but
I just think he should.
I think a lot more
AFL players should be kicking goals from these positions. But anyway,
we can go through Sunday's games later. That was horrible.
So the 3 votes I gave to Noah Anderson. He was brilliant in this game, and he's just standing up since the Touk Miller injury. I think that he's the future captain of the club, and hopefully for Gold Coast supporters and even for AFL, I hope that he stays there and he doesn't leave in the next couple of years. I hope he stays and builds the club as like a David Swallow type or a Touk Miller type. But I feel like he's a very good player, and I'd love to see him rise to this club instead of leaving in a couple of years.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any sort of talk of that happening, so hopefully he does. 2 votes against Christian Petrarca. He's played really well the last few weeks. I think he was by far the best player on the ground for the Demons. And the 1 vote I gave to Roses. He was the highest goal kicker. He hit 4 goals, career best game for the Gold Coast, and almost got them the win in this one.
Yeah.
After that, we get to Fremantle versus Hawthorn. This was a bludger. No one really cared about this one, to be honest. One good sign was to see Luke Jackson play decently. And also Andy Brayshaw, probably his best game of the season.
He got back into form.
He finally found some sort of form. So in this game, I gave 3 votes to Andy Brayshaw, 2 votes to Luke Jackson, and the 1 vote I gave to Caleb Sarong. And at the moment, I haven't really checked because I'm still tallying these votes and I'll read them out at the end of the year. I think Caleb Sarong's probably one of the leaders, nearly the leader at the moment. But he played really well.
Yeah.
After that, we get to the Bulldogs versus the GWS. This game was... Bulldogs won this one, but in the last quarter, they let them get back into it. And the Giants almost caused an upset, but...
Yeah.
I think
do you think if Toby Green played, they may have won it? Like, they may have been able to...
I don't know about that, but I think if Tom Green didn't play in this one, they would have been thrashed. Tom Green kicked 3 goals for himself and had a massive amount of touches.
38, I think it was.
He had a brilliant game, and I think that he's one of the best players of the year so far. I don't know if he has a lot of votes. I'll have to have a look, but he's definitely up there with votes for the GWS this season. So I gave, obviously, him the 3 votes. He was brilliant in the losing side. 2 votes I gave to Tim English. He was very good as well. And Marcus Bontempelli got my 1 vote.
Yeah.
And I think they got... the two Bulldogs players were pretty unlucky. I think they would have got 3 votes on their day, but because of the fact that...
3 goals, 38 disposals.
As a midfielder, that's...
He shouldered the responsibility for the Giants.
Yeah. After that, we get to Port Adelaide versus Essendon. Now, I will give you the phone here so you can read this, because you're the one who put the votes in this one. And you
it was a slogfest for Port Adelaide and the fans. Like, it was horrible in front of goal, they were.
Yeah.
Like, Dixon, he seems to just be struggling with the injuries to the knee. He seems to re-aggravate it again just before 3/4 time on the weekend. And the defence, the clearance game from Port Adelaide's lacking in the centre. But you got to give credit to the midfield and forward line for the Bombers. They were pretty good in that first quarter. Draper dominated the first quarter, and really they should have just put more scoreboard pressure on Port Adelaide. And Parrish, I gave the 3 votes for. He had like 35 plus disposals, 9 clearances. He dragged them close to over the line the game. Zach Butters, I gave 2 votes for. He wasn't in the first quarter. I think he only had like 3 disposals in the first quarter, but he drove Port Adelaide home, and he did a lot to help Port Adelaide. And I gave 1 vote to Zach Merritt. He played more the pressure midfielder that's they've been lacking during that game. So he played a selfless game, and that's the way I gave my votes. But Port Adelaide need to focus on their accuracy.
No, 12 goals, 20.
Yeah, 12 goals, 20. It was bad.
And 30. They had 10 more scoring shots and only won by 5 points.
Yeah, if you look at the stats, Port Adelaide won them all.
Yeah,
they deserve to win that game by probably 5 goals, 5 or 6 goals. But they struggled. Yeah,
we'll go to the North Melbourne game. Just scroll way up. Just go. You might as well just get that one done, and then I'll do the last 2.
The North Melbourne.
St Kilda game.
Yeah, I'm sorry for I think the 20,000 fans that were at that game. I would have asked for a refund for that first half. Far out. That was one of the worst first halves I've ever watched of football. That was so horrible. And
North Melbourne didn't have a goal.
I think it was 3 goal 17 or something at half time combined. Yeah, it was horrible. And sorry for all the betting people that gamble, but the overs were never going to happen in this game. The overs were never going to happen after that first half.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a slugfest, and you can't blame the conditions because it was under the roof in Marvel.
Yeah.
But I thought Wanganeen Miller, I thought he played a brilliant game. He kept the width on the ground, and his disposal efficiency in the first half especially, like no one could kick the ball 3 kicks in a row, but he seemed to be able to pinpoint targets, and he had 25 plus disposals, so he played a brilliant game. And I gave 2 votes to Cal Wilkie. He's playing selfless football at the moment, and he is holding the
Arguably the best one-on-one defender.
He's the best one-on-one defender, and I think under Ross Lyon, he's found a new lease of life that he already probably had under the Brett Ratner.
Previous few coaches.
Yeah, previous coaches, yeah. And
it's insane to believe that he was in the sand for so many years.
It's amazing to think that, isn't it? And I gave the one vote to Jack Zeeble. He had 35 plus disposals again. He had 10 plus marks.
It just seems like the role for him.
He does. I know that they maybe tried to go forward for him, but I think late in his career he needs more. He needs to help the back line under Clarkson, I think. And I think what he's doing is because I think he had 35 plus disposals, but he kicked it at 90%. And that's what they need. They need some stability and
good users.
Good users.
Even to just teach Sheasel as well how to play that halfback role as well.
Yeah,
it seems like he knows a lot already, but I think he needs that experienced head to just give him some tips every single now and then. Just make him to go. Like if he makes a mistake, tell him it's all good. Just keep going.
Yeah.
So I think that's good to have that halfback role.
It was good to see though that Ben Mackay seemed to get back into form in that game though.
I think he played very well in the first half, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, it was probably a toss-up between him and Zeeble for the one vote because they both played pretty well. But I think the disposal efficiency from Zeeble was just more telling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So finally, we just skipped that one just so because Jack obviously gave the votes for those two games because I was watching the Swans game. But yeah, Collingwood versus Sydney is the last one. Collingwood, I will give Sydney credit. They were in this game for 3 quarters, and I think they could have wrenched this one away. But I feel like the Collingwood were just too good in the final stages. They were just more polished. And I know some people may say that Sydney got too distracted by Nick Dacos, but I feel like it actually sparred them. I think it actually sparked them in this game, especially in the second quarter when Sydney came right back and took the lead. I feel like Sydney have lost that grunt in the past few weeks, and I feel like they were told to go to one play. And I know that may seem like, they were just too focused on Nick Dacos, but I feel like it actually sparked them. So I think that was actually a good thing that they did. And I think it just got under his skin. I mean, Nick Dacos had no influence on this game, and Ryan Clark had a pretty good game.
Yeah.
But the 3 votes I gave to Brody Myercheck. I know maybe people may say Errol Goulden, but I think kicking 5 goals in a game of footy nowadays is going to give you 3 votes most of the time because I feel like he played brilliantly.
Well, he did plus, I think 5th on the last goal, the kick of the game. Like maybe Errol
Goulden. You take Myercheck out of that team, they lose.
Yeah.
I think that he's a very underrated full forward, Myercheck. The 2 votes I did give to Errol Goulden, but the one thing as well that Errol Goulden did, he played brilliantly for the first 3 quarters, but in that last quarter when I think Sydney needed him most to use the football, I think he had like 2 or 3 touches. So that's why I was going to give Errol Goulden the 3 votes at 3-quarter time, no matter what happened in that game, but just because he went quiet in the last quarter, I gave him the 2. And the 1 vote I gave to Scotty Pendlebury, I mean, age doesn't seem to worry him, so he keeps on going.
Seems like to be getting better, to be honest.
He seems to be getting better playing off that half-back role, so I think he's definitely...
Yeah.
I think that he's definitely important to them when they go towards the finals, Collingwood. I think he's definitely going to be one to maybe even possibly look at manning up on putting defensive forward on him. But yeah, for me, that's the votes for this week. Yeah. So now we get into our tips. So round 1, we have... round 1. So at the start of the round, we have Geelong versus Richmond at the MCG. I don't think we've spent a lot of time on this one. I think Geelong will win this one and pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I think it could be mauling the way they're playing at the moment. Geelong, they seem to be back in form,
and I think Richmond are very lucky to have had a win again. I mean, they were like we've said all today. Richmond could have lost that game against any other team.
I think even if there was an Optus, they lose that game. I think the crowd would have got them over the line. Yeah. The Eagles crowd would have got them over the line in that game.
Yeah, so I think Geelong.
Yeah, Geelong.
After that, we get to the second Friday night game. I don't know why they got 2 on Friday night. I think it's kind of strange.
They were complaining on radio today about how they have 3 games on Sunday and they're overlapping. Then why the hell would you have 2 Friday games on it?
I think they just didn't want to have this game sitting as a standalone one anywhere, even any sort of time as standalone, because this is West Coast versus the Gold Coast Suns.
You put it on Saturday afternoon if you really wanted to.
I mean, they probably should have.
But I guess for because it's in Perth, that's the thing, the time difference. If they have that as a Saturday afternoon game,
yeah, it'll be 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. We might as well play it. You play the VFL games at 11 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to make this my certainty pick, and we actually, for the first time this year, we both got our certainty picks right last week, because I think it was the most easiest week of football.
Yeah, it was easy. Besides probably the Carlton-Brisbane game,
the rest of them
pretty much every other game, the favourites won.
Yeah, and I mean, a couple of games got pretty close, but I feel like the favourites were always going to win them. I'll go on the Gold Coast. I'm going to be putting my certainty pick on the Gold Coast to beat West Coast. I think West Coast, even though they're at home, they're not even that much of a potent team there anymore. I think they've only still won 2 of their last 20 games at Optus Stadium.
Yeah, and they've won 3 of their past 40 or something.
Yeah, so the West Coast I don't think are that dangerous there. I think the Gold Coast are hitting form, and let's be honest, if the Gold Coast want to be, finals bound, they have to win this game. Yeah. They can't lose this one. If they lose this one, I think Stuart Dew's job is under pressure.
Yeah.
Right under the pressure. So I'm picking the Gold Coast, and that's my certainty pick for this week.
It's got to be Gold Coast. They actually play well at Optus. The last couple of times they've played there, they've actually won. So they've got a good record there. They shouldn't lose to the Eagles side. And Collins will go to Allen and stop him.
Yeah. Okay.
And it should be a convincing win for the Suns.
After that, we get to Sydney versus Fremantle at the SCG, and I'm going to be picking Sydney in this one. And honestly, I think Sydney have to win this game. I know Fremantle and Sydney both sit 11th and 12th, so they are pretty close on the ladder. Obviously, close on the ladder. But I think Sydney are a much better team this season. And like we said, if they win those 2 games in the final, if there's 1 minute less of both of those games against Port Adelaide and GWS, they're sitting currently in the top 8. So I think Sydney are a better team. They should and they need to win this game against Fremantle at the SCG.
Yeah, I think the Swans do win. They do seem to play a bit better at the SCG. Yes, they lost the 2 games close there, but they do seem to play better at the SCG. And Freo, I think they've just got a soft kill. They got a soft kill against Hawthorn, so I don't think you read too much into it. Sydney should win.
After that, we get to Port Adelaide versus North Melbourne. Even though this is down in Tasmania, Port Adelaide are in pretty good form at the moment, and I think they should win this one. I do think it's a little bit of a danger game for Port Adelaide, just because North Melbourne are pretty good down in Tassie, and I think that North Melbourne, if they can get on a bit of a roll down there, they could actually beat Port Adelaide, but for me, I think I can't pick North. I'm picking Port.
Yeah, I think you have to pick Port in this game. I think Dixon gets a rest this week with the injury to his knee, and I think they just need to get better at the clearance game, Port Adelaide, and I think this is the perfect week to do that, to get better at it, because you're coming up against a good midfield. Yes, it's not A grade, but you got to get Simpkin.
It's definitely their best line.
It's their best group of players. So if you want to have a good, easy win, but to challenge yourself in the midfield, this is the game to do it. And Port Adelaide should be able to get back into form in the midfield for it.
After that, we get to Hawthorn versus Melbourne at the MCG. This will be a 30,000 crowd at the MCG, mostly Melbourne, and Melbourne will win this one comfortably. Yeah, this won't be much to talk about.
Yeah, it's not much to talk about.
This will be a game that everyone just whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty much that it's... it'll be interesting if Jacob Van Ruin gets off. I think he will, off that tribunal hearing, so he should get off and they'll go on their merry way again, the D's.
Saturday night, big game, Brisbane versus Essendon. This is at the Gabba. Essendon, I give a bit of a chance, but I feel like Brisbane at the Gabba, you can't pick against them there. They're playing brilliant footy at the Gabba, so I think that they'll win this one.
Yeah, if it was in Melbourne, you'd be considering different, but Brisbane at the Gabba, they're very hard to stop, and with their forward line so potent at the moment, they just have too many options.
After that, we get to Carlton versus the Bulldogs. Now, like we said, we were very disappointed by their season, and that we think they're overachieving, or not overachieving, but they're definitely higher on the ladder than they should be. So this game for both of these clubs, I think if whoever wins it gets a lot of pressure taken off. I don't think they have any pressure on them, and they sweep some dirt under the rug. And I think the team who loses this game gets a lot of pressure put on them. I'm picking the Bulldogs just because I think the Bulldogs are playing a little bit better footy.
Yeah, they seem to play better under the roof, the Bulldogs. The game style suits it, and Bontempelli is in career best form. Probably Brownlow, maybe favourite, but he's this is the game that you're going to see the Bulldogs play well. Carlton just look, if they don't have Mackay or Curnow, they got no one up forward, and they seem to be struggling to find options up forward.
So other than them too.
besides them.
It seems that you just double on both. Whoever's the deepest forward.
Well, yeah. The thing is, they've got the matchups for it anyway. The Bulldogs, so they should be able to win this. The Bulldogs, and they'll have a hell of a lot of pressure on Vossi.
Yeah. Sunday we get to the first game at 12:30 is Crows versus St Kilda. This one's a tough one because St Kilda are in very good form, but because it's in Adelaide, the Saints don't. They have an okay recent record, I think, but not the best record.
Nah,
in Adelaide,
I think it's pretty bad. Well, they won like that 2020 season. They won both their games in Adelaide, but
other than that, it's been pretty poor.
Yeah, it's been
pretty poor. So I'm gonna pick the Crows, but if the Crows don't win this game, they're kind of right back in the pack.
Yeah,
they've had a pretty good month before the last 2 weeks. If they lose this one, they're right back in the pack. And let's say if Sydney or Fremantle, whoever wins that game, they go right back up. They go above the Crows. So the Crows need to win this game to stay in touch with the 8. I do think they'll win it, but look, I think St Kilda. It's kind of disheartening to St Kilda to not be the favourite in this game, but just because it's in Adelaide, I think the Crows will win.
Yeah, I've went the Crows as well. I'm going to put my certainty on it because, to be honest, there's not any other games I'm confident in. But because the Crows are playing at home,
they look a lot better.
They look a lot better, and I think that they do have. They just need to get their forwards back into form. Yeah. They do, and it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be one of the closest games you'll see between these sides for a long time, because normally one side dominates the other. But the thing is that it's pretty much two different styles: a high-scoring, potent Crows team against this slugfest St Kilda team. So it's going to be very interesting how it goes. But I think this, I'm going to put my certainty on the Crows.
Final game of the round, the second Sunday game is Collingwood versus the Giants. I think Collingwood win this one and well. I mean, the Collingwood don't like to win well in a lot of games, I know that, but Collingwood win this one and they win this comfortably.
Yeah, I think they... Yeah, you don't really have to talk about it. Like, the Giants seem to be in games, but...
I think this may be close till three-quarter time, but I think Collingwood would just run away with it.
Yeah, it seems like that sort of game that like they've done the last couple of weeks. So they're in it till three-quarter time, and then Collingwood will belt them, really. They'll keep like probably the last 3 or 4 goals and win it easily.
Alright guys, so finally let's talk about the AFL Fantasy for this week. I was very poor. I know 2,194 doesn't sound like anything to sneeze at, but considering I had a lot of players that played poorly. I mean, I didn't have Fergus Green, so I was happy about that because he only got 6. But Cade Chandler, I had he got 37. That was poor. I had my captain on Jack Steele in his first week, thinking against North Melbourne he's going to go big, but he only got 85. I had Sean Darcy, who scored very poorly, considering obviously the other option. Basically, there's 3 ruckmen you pick from this season. It's English, Marshall, or Darcy. I don't have enough money for English yet, and I don't have enough. I have more problems to go for, so unfortunately I have Darcy, and English almost doubled his score, and a lot of people had him as captain English, so that was poor. Also, my midfield was quite poor as well. Will Setterfield, I know he was very good at the start of the season, but other than the first 2 rounds, he's only got 100 since then. So that was pretty poor. I've got to get rid of Jackson McRae, but I have more other problems. And also, I thought that Chin Cotter's 75 on Friday night was going to be a lot better than anything Stocker could score, and for some reason he thought he'd pull his finger out and score 127. So I missed out on 50 points there. So I was very poor. My rank was like, I dropped from like the top 500 to 2,500, so that was pretty disheartening, to be honest. But nonetheless, in my trades, I got rid of Luke Pedler finally. He's been very good, but his price is pretty much bottomed out now. I don't think he scores too much more, and especially this week against St Kilda with their defence, I don't think he can score a lot of points because he's very much if he scores goals and he can score. If he scores 2 or 3 goals, he kind of gets a good score, or he gets 2 or 3 scoring shots. But if he doesn't get 2 or 3 scoring shots, he doesn't usually get a lot of points. So I've got rid of him. I'm going to get, at this stage, Harry Sharp from Brisbane. But if he gets dropped, I'll probably pick Drury, who debuted for North Melbourne and was quite good. And I've got rid of Cade Chandler. and I had enough money to pick up Zach Butters. I think the Zach Butters, I was going to go for Darcy McPherson as kind of like a point of difference, because McPherson's played brilliantly this year, and I think he's only got one score under 80. But I went with Zach Butters because he's a little bit cheaper, and honestly, that's all I really had for a forward. So I went with him, which now gives me a full 6 forward line of Taranto, Sheasel, Gordon, Cornelio, Rosie, and Butters. That tops out my 6 forwards, so I'm happy with that. Honestly, in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be looking to get rid of Stocker and possibly Rory Atkins if he starts playing well. If he continues his good form. And yeah, I'm pretty much setting up my team. It isn't a terrible score, but considering so many teams scored well this week because of English, because of so many players scoring that 150 plus, it was just a little bit disheartening to get that score. But your fantasy team did very well this week.
Oh, well, yeah, if you consider it. It seemed like fantasy was back this week. Players were like, we're going to play for fantasy.
Yeah, we're going to get some easy touches.
Yeah, we're going to get some easy touches. But, I had some big scores. Like, you had Tom Green, 170, English, 150, Golden, 160, and Zeeble, 168. Like, you had so many high scorers.
Yeah, there was other ones as well.
Yeah.
Like Brayshaw, 157.
Yeah, and I was a little bit pissed because I had a chance of getting Dunkley, but I chose Caniglio. And then Dunkley pulls out 170, and I thought, yeah, here we go. This is going to bite me in the arse, and it didn't in the end. But yeah, I was the ones that played pretty poorly in my opinion were my rookies really, like Seamus Mitchell 54, Ashcroft 61, and Pedler 45. Like they're just bottom. They're just not going to make enough cash now. And I had Fergus Green as well. Luckily, he was on my bench, so I'm lucky that all my forwards played. Because if I took a 6, I would be pretty pissed.
Yeah,
but
no point in that.
Yeah, I ended up with 2,370. So I was pretty happy with that. Somehow that was still not in the top 5,000 of the week. So that's how. How many good scores there were this week.
I think we looked, and there was a player who got 2,600.
Yeah,
which is an average of over 110, I think, for each player.
He had all 6 players that went over 150. So the guy was
and he had captain on
fluked it.
He had captain on English as well.
So my trades this week were what were they? Not going to come up for me now. There we go. Fergus Green, I got rid of him for the jury for the Kangaroos, and I got rid of Pedler, and I got Fiorini. I think just because he's a low price midfielder that has a pretty low break even, so he's going to get some cash to hopefully generate some more cash for me when I can get rid of some of the rookies on my field.
Yeah, well, the thing is as well, he got 89, which isn't a lot when you want to bring him in as like a midfielder who's going to score.
Because he's only a midfielder, that's the thing. Like, you want to...
If he was a forward, that'd be fine. Yeah. Because he's a midfielder, you want him to score. But the thing is, though, because his price is so low, if he can average that 90 until Miller even comes back, or when you have a chance to get rid of him, that's fine. Yeah, like, that's fine. That's what you want. That's why I'm just going to hold off for one more week. See how Atkins goes. If he holds his spot as well and he starts, because he's playing well, but we saw the Constable started the season off very well for the Gold Coast, and then Stuart Dew dropped him.
Yeah.
So, with Lockie Weller coming back probably this week, I want to see if Atkins, 1, holds his spot, and 2, plays well with Weller in the team as well.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that, for me, I'd like to wait a week, or wait 2 weeks, just to see if they get the consistency in their game, and the good scores, and like if there's some of the good players that they came in for, it doesn't affect their score, that's when you go for it. Because if you go for a player like a Setterfield, that starts the season, but then some of the other reinforcements come back, and then his score plummets. It hurts you for generating money so that you can get rid of, because at the start of the season you're getting rookies on your field to generate money. So then at about the bye rounds, that's when you want to get rid of those rookies. You want to have them all gone. Yeah. So then at this mid-set, after the buys happen, you can pretty much go for rank. Because I know we're both nerds at this, so we're a bit different. We're not doing this for more like I don't know, fun sort of thing. Yeah. But Yeah, so you're going for rank. You want to make you feel so. Oh yeah, we're in the top 1,000 this year.
You want to at the very least, win your league that you're playing in.
Yeah, you want to go
at least competing late.
Like if you're playing with your mates in a league, you want to be you want to win the grand final. You want to be like gloat around
the workplace or whatever.
Workplace or whatever around your friends that you won, that you were better than all of your friends. So
that's why I wasn't too disappointed this week, because I did win my game in the league, so I was okay with that. So look, I was very disappointed because I had a very good rank. So I was like, I could have got really good. I could have stayed up there, be top 1,000 this year. Hopefully, I can get some good games in the next couple of weeks and bring that back. But yeah, for now, that was a bit of a poor one. That one.
Yeah, because let's be honest, the prizes are you only get prizes for the top 100.
You only win a hat, don't you?
You win a hat for the top 100, and you win. I think it's money for if you had the best round. And you win a car if you win the whole thing.
Yeah.
So unless obviously you play with your mates and you have a different prize when you win your league, but that's what. That's pretty much if you don't win in the top 100, you don't win anything. But yeah. So you
got to do it for a bit of fun.
Yeah.
We're obviously happy every single year. We always do it.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of fun. So but overall, we'd like to finish higher rank, and I think this is the highest I've been really.
Yeah, it's the highest I've ever been.
Yeah. So we did pretty good so far this year. But anyway, guys, that's the podcast for this week. I think it's a bit of a long one because we went through our passes and fails, but that's all right. Thanks for watching today. Probably be a video out there throughout the rest of the week. And just to finish off, AFL 23 is the worst game released in the last 20 years. We'll see you next week.
See you later, guys.